call on you to get started, and again, thank everybody for all the work that's occurred. Do we need to call? I guess we need to call the roll.
Yeah, let's do that.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Marty Van Ravensway, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickes, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Tom
Wilder, District Clerk.
He's here. He's eating.
Judge, I would think that if we ever needed to start a meeting with prayer, this would be it.
You're not asking me to pray, are you?
You can ask Juan.
You don't need that.
Ron, would you like to open us with a prayer?
Sure, absolutely.
Everyone will please rise.
Thank you, sir.
If you all bow with me. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we start these proceedings today honoring you, recognizing that you are the giver of all good gifts and you are our ultimate provider, and we rely upon your providence and your mercy and your grace that our lives will be pleasant, and we thank you for the blessings that you've given us. As we contemplate the issues before this court today, give us wisdom, give us the wisdom of Solomon, that we can separate the good from the evil, and we can make wise choices that will allow your people to receive the benefits that you have in store for us. Lord, we thank you for the guidance that you will give these court members as they deliberate the things today, and continue to bless this county with the abundance that you've given us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Ron.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are beginning a journey, really, rather than coming to any type of conclusion. I think that's important to note because what we're going to do today is to go through the budget requests and the recommendations from Ms. Snyder in the budget office. We do have a PowerPoint presentation, a very quick one this morning, and then we'll go into those hearings. One of the things I'd like to point out before we get into the PowerPoint is that the revenues that you find today, they will be changing as we move forward. Our goal is to approve the tax rate and the budget by September 15th. So as you look today, you're looking at the expenditure side. You'll hear Mr. Bertel with the Auditor's Office talk to you about the revenue side. Obviously, those revenues will change somewhat as we get closer on two different reasons. First of all, we'll get greater clarity from TAD as far as the values of the AV. And second of all, the cash carry forward as we move closer and closer to the end of the fiscal year. It gives the audit office a greater opportunity with more clarity to see what will be coming forward and what will not be coming forward as far as cash is concerned. With that, I'd like to start by talking a little bit about just a simple overview of the county and where we are as far as where we rate with other counties, what we've seen so far economically in this county. First of all, the appraised taxable values. Those currently we are receiving a roll that is about 93% complete from TAD. We did have an increase in overall AV. You will see that on those numbers there that our AV has grown. That we are now sitting at about 124, 125. The interesting thing is, though, is that, and I think you might have seen it in your letter, those values that we taxed last year, those properties, their value actually went down. What we see is that our increased overall AV value is due to new construction and also increases in activities related to the Barnett Shell. This is a tax rate that we're looking at. We have suggested in our recommendation that we maintain the current overall tax rate of 26.4 cents per $100 valuation. As it compares with other counties, the Big Six, in Texas. Tarrant County continues to have the second lowest tax rate, overall tax rate, of the major urban counties within the state. When you look at new construction has been a pleasant surprise for us. Our current rolls show that we have about $4.3 billion in new construction in this current year. If you compare that to about 3.5 of last year. An interesting thing to note is that is a snapshot value of new construction as it was reported January 1, 2009. The cost or the value of our single-family residency residence in Tarrant have increased just slightly, but there is a continual increase in that. As you see, I think that we're at $152,000 is our average home value. That has increased from $149,000 of last year. This is our tax rate history. I think it's important to realize that over the last 10 years, this county has continually either held its tax rate or decreased its tax rate. And as I said, what we're proposing for the balanced budget that we're presenting you today is to maintain the current level, and that current level is 26.4 cents. We're going to ask that we follow the same procedures as we have in years past as it relates to the process today. Every department will come before you. You will have an opportunity to look at those budgets and ask questions of the department heads. They very well may be satisfied with the budget that is presented. But we're going to ask that you take a vote, yes, that it is going to be included in the final budget. No, that is not going to be included, and no further discussion will be given, and that's mainly on specific items. And then if there are issues that you would like to continue discussions on, then we will ask that it'll be a to be considered or to be continued vote. We're going to ask that you do that on each of the departments. Now, that doesn't mean that's the final vote. In fact, what we'll do, we'll come back September 15th and ask you to do a final vote on the budget, and that will be the official vote as it relates to the budget. So with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Bertel if he'll come forward and talk a little bit about the revenues.
Thank you very much. To abbreviate the comments, things are pretty much as we reported a month ago. The only thing that has become clearer is that we have now tax values. And if you'll, as you run through the next few slides, this is essentially the same information we presented back on April the 7th, detailing, I'm sorry. Here we go. This just recaps the amount of revenues that we received last year, what we project we will receive by the end of this year, and then what we anticipate will be collected next year. And the next slide shows the major component changes, and these are all elements that we've spoken about, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. The motor vehicle title commissions is decreasing because of just the decline in sales, investment income because the interest rates are down. And again, just recapping the things we talked about back in April. There's an overall decrease in cash carry forward because of the decline in revenues this year and many of the transactions that were anticipated in the county clerk's office on the deed of trust and the warranty deeds and the certified copies have tapered off a little bit. So in total, when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, we talked about a $20 million shortfall. And the $5 million of additional revenue that comes from the slight increase in the value reduced that down to about a $15 million decline in overall revenues. Cash carry forward, again, those numbers are unchanged. The anticipated level of expenditures and revenues didn't appreciably change, so those numbers are the same as had been presented before. And I think that then goes to
Wait a minute, Ron, before you, and I don't necessarily want to know the answer right now, but if we could kind of look for and just kind of looking through some of the numbers, and this is on the detail as far as the Excel worksheet under our revenue tab. Sales tax collection commission, what I'm trying to do is I'm looking at what we're projecting the year to be versus what we're budgeting next year, and then in some instances looking at the prior year budget. And on that particular item, we're projecting $4.8 million for this year, but we're budgeting $5.2 for next year.
Now, and I'm not sure.
That's going to probably be Betsy, or
Well, a couple of things happened there. It's okay. Thank you. Is this on all funds or is this general fund? It's general. One of the things about that line item is that statutorily there has been a progression of moving more of that money out of the road and bridge fund back to the general fund. So each year, an additional 10% of that money comes back into the general fund. So while,
And this is on sales tax collection commission?
Yes. And so what's happening is there's an overall decrease in that between the two funds of the 10% or the $2.7 million that we projected. But what's happening is that the move to the general fund is pretty much, that shift in the percentage is offsetting the impact in the general fund. If you'll look over on...
If you're looking at the total, I think you're looking at look over on, it'd be the first page of your general fund under fees for office detail.
Right.
You've got, this year we had budgeted 5.3, we're projecting 4.8, and then we're budgeting for all intents and purposes, 5.3 again next year.
In the general fund.
In the general fund.
And so my comment is if you'll look at the road and bridge fund, you will see a decline in revenue we budgeted $8.3 million this year, which is there's not page numbers. But,
okay, I see it.
And we're anticipating collection 7.9, and next year it's 5.6. So that represents the decrease in the overall revenue plus the shift from the road and bridge fund to the general fund, which is a statutory transition over the next several years. That's all going to be in the general fund eventually.
What's all going to the general fund?
The collection commission on sales tax. So that's why the net effect of that is $2,750,000. You have a $2.7 million decrease in the road and bridge fund, and only a $50,000 decrease in the general fund because of the shift in those percentages.
Okay, then, is the same thing, the NTTA, no, it's the one right about it, motor vehicle title service. We're taking that down to 9,000, where we're estimating 38,000 this year.
Let's look at that one.
About 4 days.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Slumping sales, yes. Slumping sales.
The what?
Same as-
Slumping?
Just a decline in sales activity.
It's not really that much, I don't guess, from that standpoint, but it seems to me like if
Big
we're projecting that 38,000 this year, I would have thought that most of the slump we would have already seen in this year's numbers, and so for this year's to be 38 and then us projecting next year, it just seems like a big drop. The next ones, just overall, the constables, again, it's looking at all of these offices where there are fees or fines and trying to figure out why there's such differences between Constable 1, $556,000, and Constable 5, $222,000, and 8, $333,000.
Well, part of that is just the nature of what each of those individual constables' precinct offices do predominantly. I think Constable 1, I think they do a lot of, most all the papers come to them. Although,
I can
yeah.
add a little bit. Constable 1 has the unique waving going on. Constable One has all the probate papers filed in their court. Of
The
course, they're all
what?
just
Probate?
posted on
Probate.
the bulletin board. Constable 5, which is directly related to JP 5, and JP 5 has the smallest caseload of any of the 8 JPs.
Okay. The county clerk, I guess, copies, I would have expected that to be down pretty significantly. Is that just the whole dry up in the oil and gas, or the gas stuff?
We've got a change in methodology going into FY010. Previously, under that account number, we've included both the sale of birth and death certificates and certified copies. We've broken the death certificates out, so you're not really seeing
That was my next question.
a
so
great
that's it.
comparison there.
Under DRO, we've got customer service contracts. We went from a budget of 120 to an actual projected of 30, and we're budgeting next year 45. What happened?
Can't tell you
424,
specific to that.
353. Just if you could just check on that one.
I know most of these numbers have been coordinated with the affected office holder, and so we'll go back and check that one.
Again, the same thing would hold true on the JP fines. We've got
Are you fees or fines?
fines.
JP funds.
And then also in criminal court fines, I mean, it looks like criminal court fine number 10 has fines significant, well, maybe I shouldn't say that.
10 also handles all the traffic appeals.
Okay. Well, that would explain that one. And then, if I remember this from year to year, we'd be all right, but since I don't, I have to.
We don't want to make it easy.
But the JPs, I mean, we've got JP number 1 fines are $22,000. JP number 4 is $149,000. JP number 8 is $28,000. That seems like a JP 5 is $3,000. That's again the smallest one with the smallest activity.
That's correct. But fines are directly related to those Class C misdemeanors and truancy cases, if there actually are fines assessed on those, mainly Class C misdemeanors. Not everybody has a significant amount of highway miles that impact their cases that are filed there. In the past, the majority of those cases came from DPS. I'm not really sure if that's true anymore.
It just seems to be, I mean, when you've got one that's doing $150,000 and, or you've got really 3 that are over 100 and everybody else is pretty much under 20 or under 30, that's...
And in the past, precinct 4 and 6 were 4 and 7 had the highest number of fines.
So number 6 is making a comeback.
Appears that
So if number 6 can make a comeback, is it possible that the other 5 might follow the trend?
Now, the JP fines, are they discretionary, or is there a list that the fine is X for X offense?
I think there's a degree of discretion, and
there's a range.
one of the things that might be of value would be to the Senate Bill 1863 reporting might be
The what?
provide Senate Bill 1863 the OCA collection effort. It may be valuable to look at which precincts are waiving fees, which are credit for good time served, and those different variables in the equation. So can
If you would like to see that, we can bring that up.
put some more information together on that.
And I really would, and part of the reason for that is it seemed like 3 or 4 years ago, we talked about this in terms of some of our district courts. And we did detect that there was a particular judge that was doing some things, and the rest of them, they all kind of got together and looked at it, and I think most of their numbers have kind of come up, and I'm just wondering if the same case might not be something to take to the JPs or or some of our other elected officials to see if they couldn't help us with regards to that.
I think the way we might want to approach that then is to let us come back to you in another time and give you an 1863 report of all the collections on criminal fees and fines, this type of deal. We can do that fairly quickly, and maybe by the end of this month have that. I know we're not going to meet on the 25th. Maybe we can get it to the 18th. We'll just need to see.
We did meet with Senate Bill 7 on Thursday, and there'll be an extra $400,000 in carry forward, because you'll get a grant, you'll get another equalization payment of approximately $400,000 by the end of September, I believe.
Okay.
And then next year's number that you have is 1.2. I would estimate conservatively at 2.2. So you'll pick up $1 million there.
Okay.
Interest income, you're going, what is that 850? What interest rate are you projecting?
We are currently experiencing about right at 1%, and we're projecting that that should continue. I don't think it's going to go much lower than that. I don't think it's going to go much higher than that for the next year either.
Under miscellaneous revenue under road and bridge, we went from $1 million this year to $0. Was that just a transfer?
That's the change in our accounting methodology, that those in years past, we would record the expenditure, and then when we got on state projects, when we got the money back, we'd put it in income. So this year, when we record those expenditures, they'll be set up as a receivable rather than an expenditure.
Thank you.
Which one is
That was the under the road and bridge down at the near the bottom.
that? Okay, sorry.
It was other reimbursement under miscellaneous revenue under road and bridge. It was $1,005,000 to $0.
Okay.
That's all the questions I had, Ron. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, the first chart here just gives you a breakdown of how things have changed related to functions within the county. Of course, the most significant difference here is the interfund transfer, and that is the difference in a decrease in capital between FY09 and FY10. Transportation, there's a significant difference. Of course, those budgets were down overall, but for the second year, we anticipate $6 million worth of transportation being paid from accrued interest on the transportation bonds. So there's an additional $6 million that's budgeted above and beyond what you're going to see in their budget. Debt service is down $2.9 million, and that's because we elected not to sell bonds for the general obligation bond program. That we'll have a one-year reprieve from that, so our debt service payments did go down by almost $3 million, but we do anticipate having to sell bonds again by the end of 2010. Significant variances in the appropriations. Talked about the difference in capital, debt service, utilities are down. We do have a new contract for electricity provider. Facilities feels like we can obtain this and possibly even more, but we're going to have to watch that as the year goes on. There's a potential of a special election, and that shouldn't be a negative around there. That's a plus $1.5 million. In the event there's a Senate seat that's vacated and the governor calls a special election on a non-standard election date, then the county would be responsible for 100% of that election, which will almost guarantee a runoff to boot. That cost would be $1.5 million.
That was something that kind of, that I had not thought about.
Well, obviously, we didn't either until we were reading the newspaper one morning.
They finally got something right?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Oh, you didn't write it, sorry.
So basically, depending upon, doesn't the governor just have so many days with which to call the election?
They have some discretion. They can either, of course, they'll appoint a replacement, and then they have some discretion on whether it would be deemed an emergency. If it is, and it could be set at any date after certain things happen, obviously. Or it could be called on a standard election date. Now, if it's a standard election date, our costs would probably be cut in half because there'll be other entities participating in those election days. But if it's set out there all by itself, $1.5 million.
However, this is a nonpartisan election. It'll run the two primary parties do not put up a candidate. It's basically a free-for-all. And it's not a plurality election, it's a majority election.
So if she were to resign in October, then the first uniform election date would be November, which we...
No.
It's barred from being on the November.
Okay, so then it would have to be May, because primary is a partisan.
Right. The two uniform election dates in Texas are in May and November. I believe the election has to be called at least 36 days before any of those elections. And if the governor doesn't call a special election, then what happens is that the election occurs on the next uniform election day. So let's use your scenario. Let's say that happens in October. There would not be enough time for the 36 days. So the governor could either call a special election, or that election will occur on the next uniform date, which will be in May. But it is a nonpartisan election, and because of that, it's not a plurality vote, it is a majority vote. And if there are a number of candidates that jump into that race, then the probability is very high that we'll have a runoff, and the runoff expenses, or you can just about duplicate the general expenses.
Now, there's been one other time that the state of Texas assisted the counties in a special called election, but it was a special called constitutional election by the state of Texas, which is totally different than the scenario that we're looking at here. Anyway, it could happen, so therefore we felt obligated to prepare for it. Talked about health insurance, and as you read today, of course, our plan is, in the event there are no raises for employees, our goal is to pick up 100% of any increases in health insurance. There are 11 new positions in the budget. Those are all related to the new felony court. We see some increases in hardware software maintenance. That's primarily because of the new programming that's coming on place related to the CUC projects. Council fees, always up, but this year half of that is related to the new court itself. By the way, seen a reduction, fuel's down. In the end, we did eliminate the use of attrition. You know, we talked about that several weeks ago. We told you we were nervous every time we looked at the job posting board, and what really triggered the final decision on this was the fact that 1 week there was one position posted.
Jiminy.
Retirement is up. We've talked about our rate going up. Professional services, we see a good decrease there. That's totally related to IT. We got a $1.5 million amount in the budget for our portion of the Trinity River Vision. And we made an allocation in 2008. We stopped. We did not in 2009, so we'll pick that back up in 2010 onward. Right now, undesignated is $2 million increase over where we are currently this year.
Debbie, could I ask you a question? You said on the professional services, that's entirely attributed to IT?
Correct.
And they brought those reductions to you?
Correct. Correct. That is correct. We talked about the 11 new positions. This was an easy slide this year. They're all related to the new court.
One thing.
Now, that doesn't include any grant positions that may be.
No, it does not.
So we may have gotten some grant positions one place or another, and then that
And
would...
it's equal to about $250,000 for the next 2 years,
The
for
grant
2010 and 2011, correct? And it's for 4 positions. So you got $250,000 on top of that in 2 years. Of course, operating expense, while that's enormous in itself, $600,000 of that is council fees for the court. Capital allocation right now stands at a little over $10.7 million.
And that's general fund.
It's all in the general fund. Yes, there were no road and bridge capital requests this year. Employee compensation. This is a slide we haven't had in a very, very long time, but as of right now, there are no structure adjustments, no merit pool, no career path increases, no reclassifications, and no step increases included in the recommended budget. As Mr. Manius said earlier, we're focusing on the current tax rate, which is 2.64 cents per $100 of value. You can see on your slide there what 1 penny a tax rate and what a percentage of tax rate generates in revenue. Our effective tax rate is actually over our current tax rate. Don't see that happen very often either. And that goes back to the point that a majority of any changes in tax revenue we'll be gaining comes from new construction. The adjustments overall were $10 million. You can see the budget is balanced. There's only a small reduction in what was requested for capital and what is proposed. Now let me make this point too. Something that's not addressed in the capital is repairs to the old courthouse. We anticipate having to deal with that as soon as we get the information available from the bids. So that'll happen prior to us going into FY10.
So on something like that, if it is approximately $10 million, would there ever be a situation where a CO would be issued?
I mean, it's always a possibility. Of course, part of the reason why we didn't sell bonds this year, outside of the fact that we had the cash on hand, we're projecting for FY10, trying to stay out of the debt situation as much as possible.
I can't imagine magically producing $10 million for the repairs that we are kind of estimating are necessary over there.
I don't think we're,
I know that.
Everything I've looked at or seen is not suggesting that it's $10 million.
That's good.
And I would say that on the CO-related issue, it has greater ramifications than just buying capital for 1 year. You remember when we did our 2006 election for general obligation bonds, you gave us a charge not to raise the tax rate.
Right.
In order. Well, what's happening is that whenever you put a CO on there, those are normally 6-year, Debbie, 6-year?
Okay.
6-year. And the amount of money it takes every year to pay that debt off is fairly significant. And we've used what's happening, what has allowed us to sell debt is that we're eliminating these COs and we're not issuing more. That gives us a little more money to go out and sell debt for the general obligation bond issue.
And he's absolutely right. That's why we see a decrease between 2009 and 10 for our debt service payments, because we are paying off some of those old CO bond issues. And we see that one more year happening in 2010. It'll actually naturally decrease again in the event we don't sell any more debt. So because those have been going off the books, we got out, for a long time we were in a replacement mode. After you go through 6 years and you're paying off some and you're replacing it. Now we're in a mode where they're disappearing totally from our obligation, and we've been able to, when we sell additional debt, keep our debt service payments static. So we said the same thing.
Yes, we did. Sounds good, though.
It does sound good.
Another slide you don't see very often, there's only one important date, and that's to approve the budget. And of course, the last Tuesday in September, we'll actually come back to you with all the special purpose budgets.
Debbie, I'd like for you to explain, I think we all understand it, but the public may not understand why we're not required to have a public hearing this year on the tax rate. I think that's important information.
Well, it's because our current tax rate and what the tax rate we're proposing is below our effective tax rate.
In English.
Let's see, in English, we don't have to, because let's say we don't have to. We're not going to do it.
Required to do it because we're not raising taxes and we're not generating more revenue than we did last year.
Correct.
Consequently, we don't have to have a public hearing.
And just, the effective tax rate is out, calculation is out there to guarantee a public entity approximately the same amount of taxes as they got the year before. The only benefit we get from this whole process is we do get the direct benefit of new construction. And we've talked about that a couple of times. What we've seen from an increase in tax revenues is truly from the new construction and not from the property that was on board this time last year. So
let me try it one
it just gets worse.
If it weren't for new construction, the current tax rate would raise less money than what we raised last year. Therefore, the effective tax rate, which is the rate that raises exactly the same sum of money as we received in the prior year, is higher than our current tax rate.
That's correct.
Correct.
Now, is that going to translate to a tax reduction for everybody? No.
No.
But what we've seen is the properties that were taxed last year, their values have gone down. And so those individuals whose properties have gone down, and you stay with the 26.4 cents, their tax bill will go down.
That's about a third of the properties?
It's a substantial amount. I don't know exactly what the percent.
But let me also say, I mean, there are unique exceptions in everything.
Right.
And you heard earlier that our average value went up. Well, the reason that average value went up was because of the new homes that had been constructed. In addition to that, I think, one of the things that you've got to be aware of is that there is that cap on taxable value in any given year. And in that cap remains at 10%, which means that if in the prior years your home value went up by 20%, the taxable value part of it only increased 10. And so over the years, there may be a significant difference between what is the market value and what is the taxable value. So this year, you're going to have those instances where the market value came down, but it was still above what they had been being taxed at, and so there may be a tax increase even though their market value declined. And that's one that's going to be real fun to explain, and that's why Betsy's going to have all those people explaining that when she sends out those notices.
Commissioner Brooks, one of the things that you said about the public hearings, we will hold public hearings. And Debbie, you might want to explain.
We will have a public hearing on September 15th when we approve the budget.
Two of them, excellent.
Well, there's two, one for elected official salaries and one for the budget itself.
But we don't have to have a public hearing.
The two proceedings.
Yeah.
And we don't have to...
To set an outside tax rate, we don't have to have a public hearing because we're raising less revenue than we raised last year.
That's correct.
Consequently, we're below the effective tax rate.
Even though we didn't raise the tax rate for the past 10 years, we've had to state that we raised taxes because we brought more income in.
Correct. Now, I think JPS was also, they're in the same situation, aren't they?
Right, yes, they are.
And they'll be coming to us.
We've asked them to come to us with their budget on. They've asked to extend when they can come to us, and we've set that date to September 1st. That gives us 2 meetings before. But tomorrow, we are going to ask you all to receive and file both our requested tax rate and their requested tax rate. So you'll see that in your book tomorrow.
The outside, the highest.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other
Do
questions?
we have somewhere a list of properties that are removed from our tax rolls for whatever reason by exemption or homestead or,
Well, we don't have,
it's not removing the whole property, but a portion of the tax that the individuals would pay. And that's what I've been asked for, is show me how much money comes off for the TIFs, the TERS, the tax abatements, and the senior citizens freezing of tax.
we have that. We have that in total. Now, are you talking about individually?
Individually.
Yeah, we have that in total.
Here's some of these.
Yeah, some of that's
Right.
listed in the cover letter. And then, of course, we also have, you also have the TIFs.
And where is that?
Well, the TIFs is actually in your revenue estimates.
Okay.
And this year, they're estimated to be $8,082,024, compared to approximately $7.7 million for FY09. That's the second item, third item on your revenue estimates from the top. And there's been a significant increase in the TIFs. The actual in FY07 was $4.7 million. This year is estimated at 8.02, 8.08.
Which says that what we did with the TIFs
It's working.
in that
The
we
construction.
promoted economic development and that it is raising the values of the properties in which we have.
And of course, to be clear, on a
And it's
TIF,
translating into additional revenue for all entities.
And
Above
it
what's
provides,
designated for the TIF.
remember, we normally don't do 100% TIF.
Right.
So if we're sitting at a 70 or 80%, that means that there are extra revenues coming to the county for county's use that would not have been there except for the TIF.
and back to your original question, I mean, we do have information broken down by the by the type of exemption. This on your cover letter that you received shows that there's almost $11 billion worth of exemptions in total, but we can give that to you in greater detail. Now, the TIFs are not part of that, because the difference between a TIF and a true exemption is that just lowers your tax rate, your tax bill, your appraised value. A TIF, we actually collect the funds, and then we pay it back out to the TIF itself. And of course, a TIF is a tax incremental financing district.
That detail, I think, would be helpful on the exemptions.
On the exemptions.
On the exemptions.
And probably the most relevant one to look at will be the September 1st supplemental roll. One of the things, and the auditor's office and I have talked about this a lot, there's several categories in your in our appraisal information that we receive from the appraisal district, and one of those is properties that are still under protest. But the second one's what's called incomplete properties. The values associated with incomplete properties was huge this year. It's a number we haven't seen in the past. Now, an incomplete property is one, and Betsy, step in anytime if I say this wrong, where there hasn't actually been notice that's gone to the property owner regarding their values. And then they still have a period of time to appeal.
Okay.
Now looking at what detail that we did get and what made those incomplete properties, most of it was business, utilities, a lot of it was utilities. So I don't know what the anomaly was between this year and next year and this year regarding that, but the number was sizably larger than in the past.
Do you have any idea what might have caused that?
As far as I know, the anomaly was the fact that the data did not come in as quickly as they had hoped on a lot of commercial properties, and meaning that they had later gathered, and the agents who protest for commercial will be bringing a lot more in to work the records. So some of those just flat didn't get completed. And that happens sometimes in an active year like this. There are more than one, where the agents have gone down as well as up.
So we're anxious to see the September and how that all works out. And as Mr. Manius mentioned, it's likely that we'll get another update today or sometime early this week from the appraisal district.
At the time that we last did it, was it 93%?
93.2.
Okay.
But you know all the facts, 93.2.
And one other, as you pointed out, more like in the letter, we're continuing to include the 100% collection rate, assuming that with the combination of current taxes and delinquent taxes and penalties and interest, that the overall amount of money that collected will be 100%. And that has historically been the case, and that's just kind of one of those, we have there's a little tinge of apprehension that if the economy continues to, if it doesn't spike up, or if it gets worse, then that 100% collection might be in jeopardy, but it never has been. So at this point, we're estimating 100% of the levy will be collected as taxes through
In some
current,
form.
delinquent, penalty, interest, et cetera.
We're anticipating 100%. What have we actually been collecting?
It has typically been less than 101%, but it has been over 100%. I don't have the exact number handy.
04?
About 100, Commissioner Johnson, about 100.04%. That's what we, and of course, that's even a small amount, a small percentage amount is some dollars. I mean, you're applying it against a fairly large numerator, or denominator, excuse me.
Other questions? Okay. Now, Mr. Manius, at 10 o'clock, I know that Commissioner Brooks and I each have different conference calls that we're supposed to be on at 10, so if we could, at 10 o'clock, maybe break for 10, 15 minutes, that'll be all right with everyone, and then we'll...
Your Honor, I just might like to also say that one of the reasons that you have a budget that's presented to you today in a concise manner is that the court in April, we came to you and talked to you about things that might impact this budget, and we asked you all to take positions on things such as no new positions and hold down the Capitol. I just want to make a comment that the department heads and elected officials, they heard your message, and they did that. And those department heads and elected officials are to be commended for that, because it just shows what kind of team we have here in Tarrant County putting together a budget in difficult times. So with that, are we ready to begin, Ms. Snyder?
Sure.
Okay. We're going to ask the Sheriff's Department. And we will break a little bit in about 5 minutes or so. Okay.
Morning. Good morning. Let me start off by saying that, as I know all of you have had, we have had one of the more difficult budget years to deal with as well. We've certainly tried to look with increasing scrutiny at our needs and what and what we need. I think I don't have any real monetary issues to bring up with you, but I would like to be able to take a couple of minutes and just talk some philosophy and some things that have bothered me and or continue, I think, to bother some of the other department heads and elected officials. Our employees have been tremendously concerned about what their fate was and their future was as far as raises and what was getting ready to happen. Never before in the budget process in the 9 years I've been here have we waited until today to discuss the potential of any increases. And certainly, I guess if the theory is that if it's going to be bad news, we don't give them bad news, then we've accomplished that. But I think it does add to the problems that we're all going to have, particularly elected officials and department heads, when we go back into our groups and say the news is as dire as we feared, that there is no money. You will receive absolutely nothing. Basically, it's difficult. And all I ask of you and ask you to consider, if that is going to be the case in future years, that it's much easier if we if we know something, before that is just dropped on us like an anvil. I think we all were expecting the news to be dire, but we were hopeful that there was going to be some wiggle room and that there was going to be some compensation, particularly, and I know this is not a popular argument to make, but particularly in the law enforcement world where you look around and you see that other agencies and the people we recruit against and the people we hire against continue to move forward and receive more compensation. And for the law enforcement here not to receive any compensation or consideration makes it very, very difficult in our job to recruit and retain and hire the best employees that we have. And lastly, I guess I would say that two things. One, I had a great deal of concern, and I continue to voice my concern when a county, an entity comes out as a policy and says that there will be no reclassifications for any jobs considered at all. Over the past year, we have increased some people's workloads. We have some people who deserve to be reclassified. And I think as a policy decision, saying that we're not going to reclassify any jobs puts us as elected officials on some pretty thin legal ice. I think if someone comes up and says, I'm now doing the job that this guy sitting next to me is doing, and he's making more money than I am, and I have no regress, I have no way to go have my job considered, that we're opening up a potential problem there. And I'd like to make sure that you understand, I believe in my heart of hearts that at least in the sheriff's office, we've got some jobs that should have and needed to be reclassified and looked at, and yet through the policy we were not able to. Lastly, the issue of no new positions. We did that. We understand that, but I also want everyone to understand as I get up here every year and say that any year we don't hire new positions in certain places, we're falling further and further behind. And I think last year I stood up here and fought for the 2 patrol positions that I've been promised the year before, and after having that happen, and then being talked about our judicial situation, how far we're slipping behind as far as security at the courthouses, ability to service the judges, et cetera, that we're continuing to fall further and further behind. And it is a tremendous credit to the employees that we have, that we continue to cover all the needs, and we continue to keep the 62 judges that we have to make happy on a daily basis happy. And I'm just here to tell you once again that we're sliding down that slope. And I don't think a year from now I'll be standing here and tell you that we had a great year with the judges this year. I think this is the year that the straw will break the camel's back. I don't think we can cover the continuing increases that we have, and my people work very, very hard. They do a great job. They hate to tell people no, but we are literally to the point, as these thousands and thousands of extra security requests come in to our office every year, we're to the point where we've had to start already telling people no. We can't do it. We don't have the manpower. It's not what we like to say. It's not what people like to hear, and it's certainly not a good feeling when we start worrying about our actual security of our people that come down to serve on jury duty and litigants in court and our own employees. And so with that, we accept our fate. Our capital budget was funded as well as we'd hoped. We obviously put in for everything, just lean on top of everything. And then we also honored the request of no new positions. And I'm here to tell you that I think that's a mistake, and we will pay for it down the road, but we're here to do that. But it also is frustrating then if you hear that no new positions is no new positions, and then other positions get added as well. And that's frustrating for us that play the game by the rules. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you have or address any concerns. And I understand the situation we're in, but it's going to be a very, very tough year to deal with our employees in this situation.
Well, I understand it is a tough year. I think it's a tough year for a lot of folks, and I appreciate, and I know it was a hard budget to put forth, and I appreciate your efforts in that regard.
I think maybe it's appropriate to say, if you think this year was tough, hang on for next year. And I think seriously that our employees need to be aware that when there is no money, there is no money. And there was no secret about we're cutting a new court. That's been going on for at least a couple of years. And the employees that we have for the new court are required. There's nothing that we can do about that. And there are certain mandates that we have no choices in. We aren't comfortable having to say no, but when no is no, it's still no.
I understand, Commissioner, and I guess my only disagreement with what has gone on is in the previous years, even in tough budget years, we've had a lot of conversation leading up to this about where we are, potential revenue, hay studies, what the scales may be, and it was almost like every time we tried to talk about compensation.
I would take exception with that. When you are talking about all of the dire things, how much clearer can you get?
I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying, rather than have people, understand or that aren't politically astute, which many of my employees aren't, I just think if we have the opportunity, it's better to share that information in black and white. And please, I'm not being overly critical. I'm just saying it's tough to come up into the very 11th hour and for me to say, I don't know. I mean, there has been no announcement.
We're talking about next year now.
Yeah.
Sheriff, we all appreciate the cooperation of every department head. It has been the philosophy of this court since we started talking about budgets back in March or so, that we wanted to keep every Tarrant County employee who has a job with a job. I think that we've been able to do that. It has taken some sacrifice on everybody's part. But I don't think that anyone who has been paying attention to the world around them and to the other entities who are laying off personnel and having to curtail programs and cut the things that they're doing, I don't think anybody could have understood that this was anything other than a lean zero year. And we've said that from the beginning. Perhaps this court could have taken could have discussed compensation issues specifically and taken a decision on that specifically, but I don't think it could have been any clearer than the directions that we gave. 0, 0, 0.
And I understand what you're saying, Commissioner. I guess, in the world of a lot of places where zero and the like, that you still see public safety getting some compensation. Fort Worth's laying off 200 employees, but by their contract they're going to give their law enforcement people a raise. But
we have always resisted the effort to create separate classes of employees and treat one group differently from another.
I understand.
I think that is good public policy.
And I'm not here to argue against it. I'm just saying, as an average person who works in the confinement division, sitting at home listening to the news, there were some expectations from those people, no matter what we said, of is there going to be a little, is there going to be this, is there going to be that, and I know, there was a discussion of perhaps being able to do something for the employees, but we're accepting of what the decision is. We will do the best we can with what we have, but as our warrant count continues to grow, as we continue to slip further and further behind, as our response times on patrol continue to increase, as the judge's situation becomes more and more dire and more impossible to work, and just understand that we're doing the best we can with what we have, and we'll continue to do that.
I think we're also continuing to watch the revenue estimates. I think that's one of the things that was a great uncertainty for all of us. We weren't sure how impacted we were going to be, and we're still not to a great extent. We still have a tremendous number of protests out, and that, if there is any possibility, it is going to be based almost solely upon how those appraisals, after as many of the appeals have occurred as possible, because as Commissioner Brooks said, our main goal was to make sure everybody continued to have a job and not to have to go to the major departments and say, you got to cut back 10% and reprioritize your different jobs and focuses for the year. So we've still got, we've still got a couple of reports coming in, and we'll just have to see how those work out.
And I appreciate that, and I think any message that, there may be a tiny pinhole of light at the end of the tunnel is a message that...
I think that could be a mistake to say, that there's hope out there, because we really don't know. We know that there's 4 times the number of protests usual. They've got the same number of rooms, and they're overcrowded with rooms even to provide the opportunity for people to protest. So if this year is grim, hang on for the ride for next year.
Far better for the employees to understand zero. And if we're able to do something at the last of the ninth, it becomes a blessing.
I agree.
Rather than to raise expectation and not be able to reach them.
Well, there have been no raising of expectations. Don't misread me. We haven't certainly gone out and said we think anything's going to happen, but there's just, like Judge Willie said, just been that uncertainty, and we certainly we're hoping for better news, but we'll continue to hope for better news, I suppose.
Sheriff, thanks for being a team player and understanding. I know that we have discussed this up here since April, that the situation we're in, and many of us up here fought for your men year after year to bring them, equality and bring them up. And this year we can't do it for anybody. And I know my employees and at my precinct and everybody else up here, we've told our people a long time ago it's not going to happen this year. So.
Any questions about it, the budget at all?
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Sheriff, are you satisfied with all of your budgets, or do we? Okay. We'd ask that the court.
With the sheriff's budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, may we recess for about 15 minutes?
I was very pleased that they took one paragraph.
We'll go ahead and get back at it again.
If we could, we'll go to Constable Precinct 1.
Are you satisfied with your budget?
Me?
You precinct 1?
Yeah, almost.
What part of no don't you understand?
Why aren't you up?
Yes, I'm satisfied. You think back, we used to have to go back in here and cut 10% off these budgets, and at least you didn't ask us to do that this time. So we're proud of that. And
Those that come up to the podium, though, we're going to ask you to go back and cut 10%.
I didn't come to the podium, I was called. No, Debbie's done a lot of, and her staff has worked hard on this, and all we got to do is look around at these other counties that are dropping their employees, and I know it's tough, it's a tough job, and we've all got to work together on this. And thank you very much.
Move to approve Constable Precinct 1's budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 2.
Precinct 2 is not here. They have indicated acceptance of the recommendation.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 3.
Precinct 3 has no disagreement with the proposed budget.
Move approval.
Second. He didn't even come forward.
Smart.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 4.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Take notice that Precinct 4 didn't waste their time coming down here today. They're working.
Here we go. Did you get that?
Better recheck there.
Precinct 5.
Same thing.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Not JP.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second to approve Constable Precinct 5. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 6.
Precinct 4, too.
Precinct 6.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 7.
Your Honor, Commissioners, I'm good. I won't come up there.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 8.
Please indicate approval of the budget.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Medical Examiner.
I want to thank the constables who did come and express appreciation for those who didn't and agree with what he proposed.
Medical Examiner.
Medical examiner called. They will not be here, and they wanted to express how much they enjoy working with the budget office.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Fire Marshal.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Community Supervision.
They have no objections.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Pretrial.
Pretrial services, is satisfied with the budget.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Juvenile.
10%.
to come up here, but I do have to say First of all, Commissioner, I do want to express appreciation for our work with the Budget Office. Back earlier this year, I began to notify the Juvenile Board, the Budget Office, and Mr. Manius's office about some significant changes that we were anticipating with our federal funds that we were receiving. In essence, we learned back in the first week or so of June that we would be losing somewhere in the proximity of about $2 million annually in federal funding. And so we were beginning to deal with that through the spring, and understanding that. Worked very closely with the Texas Juvenile Probation Commission met personally with some of the directors with CPS, who oversees those funding streams for the state of Texas, and they became more and more real that was going to be a major loss in revenue. And again, through our conference with the Texas Juvenile Probation Commission the 1st of June, we found out definitively that we would be receiving somewhere in the neighborhood of about $2 million loss annually in our federal dollars. Then, through the process of the legislature, we also received a reduction in our state revenues of about $250,000. And so, through that process, and as we learned more and more of that information, began to work with Debbie and understanding how we could best deal with that. So, again, I do appreciate the support that the Budget Office provided for us in replacing some of that loss, certainly not at the level where it's going to allow us to continue to operate some of the programs and services that we've been able to operate for the past several years. I've met with the Juvenile Board at our meeting last month, informed them of some of the dynamics that we're going to have to deal with in order to address that loss in revenue, and we have been working diligently over the past few weeks to clearly define how we're going to make that happen. The reason I wanted to just make a couple of comments to you is just make it very clear that even though within our county budget we are not anticipating the loss of any positions, I am not able to stand before you and say I will be able to maintain all positions that I currently have within our program and within the services that we currently provide. We're evaluating that currently. We're looking at reduction in contract services in order to meet that financial loss that we're experiencing with our federal money. We're anticipating that not only for 2010, but certainly for 2011, and certainly into the next numerous years as we deal with that loss of revenue. I do want to also share with you, though, is that we're going to manage it, and we're going to manage to it, and we're going to make the hard decisions and deal with what we have to deal with. But it will require us to reduce potentially staff. Don't know that for sure yet. We're still working on that detail. But some combination of contract services that we have with some of our contract providers is certainly going to be a part of our discussion as I meet with our juvenile board next week. So I did want to, again, just make you aware of that. I did not want you to hear that from other resources. I wanted you to hear that from me personally rather than hearing about that through other resources. So I do just want to make you aware. And, again, we certainly accept and appreciate the work of the Budget Office as well, and we're fine with the county budget as it's been presented. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So you've lost about, what, 2.5?
About $2.25 million, yes, sir. And that will be going, certainly the biennium, each year, the biennium, every 2 years with the state budget, we certainly don't know what to anticipate 2 years from now, but we know we lost about $250,000 for the next biennium from our state revenues, in addition to the federal loss. So that's what we're specifically dealing with.
So you might say that things could get worse?
Yes.
I think he said things will get worse.
And he's also saying that he's managing to the revenues and the resources that he has.
Correct. Right. We will make those decisions, and I'll finalize those decisions with the juvenile board within the next week or 10 days.
Well, I know that we have had good support for the programs that, at least at one point in time, were called TCAP.
Yes.
And I know that they've been successful.
Yes.
And I'm sure that there will have to be some impact to those.
Yes.
But you're still going to try to maintain where the programs are? Or are you going to reduce the number of programs? Or
probably a combination of all of that. We've been looking, again, very specifically and trying to really define the best use of the dollars that we do have available to us, where we have the most positive impact. This commissioner's court approved for us a couple of years ago some positions that had to do with research and program evaluation, and we've been doing a lot of that over the past couple of years to really clearly define what programs are working the best for us. still trying to meet our commitment to providing services for kids and families within this community, trying to minimize sending kids off. I would say, and again, I don't want to belabor the issue, but one of the things that the state did in the legislative process this past year that Judge Boyd and I both fought very specifically through the legislative process was rather than just simply helping us replace the loss of federal dollars, they put in a program that would require, in order for us to receive new state money, we would have to commit to a major reduction in committing kids to the Texas Youth Commission. We argued for months that we have already done that. We have been doing that for the past 15 years. And in order for us to receive additional funding, as I presented to our juvenile board a couple of weeks ago, that in order for us to receive additional state money, we would have to reduce our commitments to TYC by a number that we feel like is unreasonable and quite honestly is very difficult. And so we're still struggling with whether or not to accept new money, with the understanding that if we don't reduce those commitments, then we could basically lose those dollars in 2011. And so if we go down the path of accepting the money this year, we don't meet that commitment level, then we stand to lose that money in 2011. So you build programs and you have to cut them. And so I just don't, again, we're trying to make those kind of decisions to best manage so we don't put ourselves in a position of taking money that we're going to lose in a year from now.
In effect, they're punishing us for the way we have performed in the past, and as opposed to rewarding our behavior in the past.
I believe that's a fair interpretation.
Are you getting any support from any of our local legislators with regards to potentially trying to change that during the next session of the legislature?
We spoke about that. I've spoken with Judge Boyd about that very issue, and we have plans to go and see every one of our legislative contingency here in Tarrant County to try to get some changes done in the next session. Definitely we want to work towards that end. Yes, sir.
Maybe before, as you decide or as you attempt to decide whether to accept any of that money, maybe one of the things to do would be to seek out their advice with regards to that and whether they feel like they might be successful in, taking out that punitive.
Point well taken. Yes, sir.
And we need to keep an eye on this situation legislatively, Judge, so that it can be a major component of our next session's legislative agenda.
Definitely.
We would certainly appreciate that support as well, Commissioner Brooks. And it was one of those things that I don't want to say too much, but my peers, some of my peers in this field, were some of the proponents of this model. And again, we fought that and felt like it was not in the best benefit of kids and managing the resources that we have. And so, I was certainly in opposition to some of my peer group, and it's created some conflict across the state, even within the field of juvenile probation. But we certainly believe that we will work within the budget that we have. We will work within the funding stream that we have. We will fight the battles when we need to during the next session. And I will certainly keep you informed of what's going on. But as I said from the beginning, I want you to hear that from me. I do not want you to hear that from anybody else.
I appreciate you and your department for aggressively implementing the strategy of this court, which is to try to keep our kids at home.
Exactly.
To try to take care of our juvenile crime situation here in Tarrant County with local resources. I think it's unfortunate that we are penalized at the state and federal level for having done what they're already about to pay other counties to do.
Exactly.
But that's part of leadership.
Exactly. I agree. And you deal with it as it comes. So that's what we will do. So we do accept both juvenile services and our detention budget. I think they're under two separate budgets, but we do accept those budgets as presented.
Move approval of both budgets.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
323rd District Court.
There's no issues, even though we promised to keep an eye on psych exams.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Public Health.
Public Health accepts the recommendations of the Budget Office.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Motion passes unanimously.
Human Services.
Human Services respectfully accepts the recommendations of the Budget Office.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd like to ask a question in regard to the burial versus the cremation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, ma'am. What is the nature of your question?
Is there any consideration to limiting the services to strictly cremation?
It is allowed by statute to do so. As I understand it, Dallas County has gone to a predominantly cremation basis. At issue here is, under the model that we've had in the past, is that we set maximum values for both burial and cremations, and then have a private decision by the individual family or the decedent, depending on what their wishes were before. And so they select vendors throughout the county, and then typically the decisions are already made before they come to our desk as far as if it's going to be a burial or a cremation. We have never forced the issue. It is allowed by statute. I can do some research and see what other counties, the major 6, are doing, and come to you with that information.
Would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Wanna do
that
that?
that's something we need to at least look at.
Very good.
And what is the difference in the,
There's about a 40 to 50% greater value of cost. Full-body burials are about 50% more than the cost that we pay for a cremation.
I know that's not a pleasant subject for anyone, but
No.
I think it's appropriate to know.
And it's really something that has never been addressed publicly by the court. This has been the model of our service delivery since 1991 when I first joined the county.
You know, that was another thing that I had somewhat highlighted. The medical examiner's office, I noticed for their cremation fees, we had a budget of $58,000 in 2009. We're projecting that we're going to collect $1,000 this year, and we budgeted $0. So I'm assuming something has happened in that regard.
What?
That's from the medical examiner standpoint, but
Well,
The cremation permits got done away with.
Dr. Periwani has very strong feelings about cremations that you might want to visit with him about.
And that's part of the discussion. I don't mind having this discussion, but there are some segments of the community where cremation is not a culturally accepted thing to do. I think by setting a maximum that we will pay and letting the family involved make a choice, have the option, that we are providing the greater service.
I think there's a difference in the maximum, though, for the service, rather than a voucher or whatever you might say for a specific amount of money to be used in either direction. There's a difference in what service they choose. Is that correct?
That is correct. And actually, there's a maximum amount based upon the size of the decedent, the age and size, and the maximum is set for 3 or 4 different categories in cremations, as well as adult burials, for the funeral home costs and for the cemetery costs. And again, it's substantially more for a full-body burial, or what I have come to refer to as a full-body burial.
I don't even want to think about partial body burial. That
No,
just
ma'am.
doesn't sound right.
Exactly, yeah. And terms are very difficult, and I've tried to figure out the best way to put some things over the years. Burials is not, it's statutorily required that the county shall provide for the burials of paupers. And so from there, we've got 254 different counties and probably 254 different approaches, as you can imagine.
No, I
I'll be back in touch with you on any other
I
pertinent
appreciate
data.
some
there.
additional
You bet.
information.
No, that'd be great. Thank you all very much.
We ready to have a vote on it?
Do we?
We ready to
Do we have a
have
motion and a second? Motion passes
Could
unanimously.
we wait until we got some additional information, since I requested the additional information?
That'll be fine. I think we can come back and address that at the point in time.
Sure we can.
So we'll put that down as a,
To be continued.
to be continued.
Child Protective Services.
Child Protective Services appreciates the support of the Budget Office and your continued support as a county commission, and ask for approval of our budget as recommended.
Move
for
approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Public Assistance.
Wait a minute.
Wait.
Well, you all realize I'm just the front man while Estelle has time to come up here, so we need to wait just a minute.
You're no better than this. Don't give him his gift.
Is it edible?
It's not edible. It's not edible, but it'll help.
Is it drinkable?
That's
This goes to the judge.
Yes, sir, it's okay.
Oh, the judge is special. I'm just going to let you know, Estelle just said the judge is special.
Well, there's a reason for that. Don't open them yet, because I have a little speech to make to you. I do know that this is a year of the economy. We've had a shortfall in the budget, and we've all had to cut back. I asked for a stimulus package, but I was refused because Dallas had gotten in ahead of me, and they were asking for one for the park above a freeway. Now, this sounds a little bit strange to me, but that's okay. I made up for it. In your packet, don't look in it yet, but in your packet, you're going to find that as of Friday or Thursday, I said, okay, they're going to balance the budget, so I'll give them a package to celebrate. So in that package is a whistle and a pop-up. But don't do it. Read all the directions first. Now then, I know that you all have spent a lot of time on the your little hand calculator. So in order to weigh you for me, I have put a little one in here, a little puzzle type, so that you can play with it instead of the calculator. Now then, there's other things that come about too. We know that in the shortfall, you may vote on the budget when you finish up all these and agree to everything. But if there is a shortfall, I did not forget you. I had some checks made up. I went and had them printed so that this will help you with your shortfall. In the package that you have has 20s, 10s, 5s, and 1s. And this is, each one of you have some of that, so you can pitch that in to help with that. But what I did think of you if you did have a shortfall. Now then, the one thing that is lacking, and I did not bring it, and I was afraid to bring it, but I will bring it to you later.
You were afraid to bring it?
What's that?
You were afraid to bring it?
Yes, I was afraid to bring
I
it.
think you were afraid of anything.
But what happened is, I wanted to bring you champagne, couldn't afford it, since we didn't get the stimulus package. So then I thought about beer, and I said, no, the White House has a hold on that. They use that. So then when I went to
Watch yourself, Estelle.
So then when I went to the package store to see what I could get, I looked there, and even I couldn't afford to buy a gallon jug of I think it's called Mad Dog now. It used to be Morgan David. But then I decided, no, that wasn't it. And one of the clerks there said, oh, well, we have something for you. And the reason I didn't bring it, because it isn't cold, and I have been told when I brought drinks up here to make sure they were cold, so I will send them later. But your beverage is going to be, from now on, instead of champagne, will be Mountain Dew.
We can have a Mountain Dew.
So I do thank you, and I hope you enjoy your little packages. And if I can be of any further assistance, let me know.
You know, this probably
Thank
has
you.
the same value as some of the new money they've been issuing.
What's that?
Probably has the same value as some of the new money that's been issued.
Well, that's it, you know, I wanted to, since you might have a shortfall, I went ahead and printed some for you.
Took care of us, thank you.
You're welcome, and you got your little...
I got $1.
Let's see, I got the 20s.
Well, you got, well, see, and you got the ones.
I got the ones, thank you.
You're welcome. But see, everybody has to pitch in
Oh, I like this.
on that shortfall. So just remember, if you do need any more, I can get those made up for you.
Just print them up.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome, thank you.
We did pass on that. What are you looking at? You can go ahead now.
Is it okay to go forward?
Yeah, you can go forward now.
What happened?
I don't know,
to
wait a
the
minute,
top
Commissioner
list?
Johnson's trying to, don't pull that, don't be blowing that whistle yet.
My whistle doesn't work.
Just leave it out. Leave that out, we can use it later. We may need it.
Public assistance.
Stuff blows out of it.
Public assistance.
Public assistance. Public assistance is one of those that we actually don't invite the departments or the affected organizations to come and see you, but it is essentially unchanged. We have 1 year of one organization that we gave extra in 2009 for some renovations, and that's gone back to its normal level of expenditure.
Move approval of the public assistance budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion?
Debbie, do we have, I know that some of this is actually considered part of the DA's budget, or that we...
There are a few that provide direct services to departments that we will include in their departments. Cost is one of those, and Alliance for Children, we budget elsewhere.
Is this considered ongoing, or is there a time limit to any of this? Is there a reduction over a period of time, like grants, or?
We've wrestled for the last 20 years or more on how to handle these organizations. These are what we pretty much consider the ones that have been with us since the beginning, and unless we get some direction from the court, there's not any planned changes.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, we haven't increased many of them in many years, but there was a small increase for, an $8,000 increase for what's now called the CAP program with the City of Fort Worth in 2009, that one-time allocation for the Black Historical and see, I don't try to say it because I never get it out. Genealogical Society,
Very
Association, Commission. But otherwise, most of them remain unchanged.
Any other questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Texas Ag Extension.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Veteran Services.
They are also satisfied with the proposed budget.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Historical Commission Archives.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Resource Connection.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Civil Courts.
Let's back up on Resource Connection. Is this a budget on their own revenues, or is this coming out of county?
It's on their own revenue side.
Yeah. All of it?
All of, yes.
Okay, on Civil Courts, we're going to the 17th District.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor and Commissioners. My name is Melody Wilkinson, and I'm proud to be a judge of the 17th District Court, and because it's my first time to appear at the budget hearings, I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you all very much for what you are doing. I know that you have a very difficult and challenging road ahead with all of the budget cuts and issues that we have this year, but I think it's a very great goal to keep all of our employees employed. I also wanted you to know that as a first-time judge, it's been very helpful to have Debbie Schneider and her staff. They have been extremely helpful, as has Mr. Manius and folks on his staff like Craig Maxwell. They have been very, very helpful to the court. And so I'm here simply to say thank you and request approval of the recommended budget.
Do you really mean that about GK, or did you just throw that in?
Absolutely, I do. Hey, they have just made our lives so much easier, and we're very much appreciative of
I
that.
tell you that all the time, you just don't believe us.
Move approval.
You're his favorite judge.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, she is.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Good job, Judge.
48th District.
48. 48 had no issues.
Move approval.
Second. Motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
67th District.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
96th.
They had no issues.
Move approval?
Second.
Motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
141st District.
New judge, and they had no issues.
Move approval?
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
153rd District.
Move for approval?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
236th.
Talked to Judge Lowe on Friday. While it's his tradition to be here, he could not today. He sends his thanks and says he has no issues.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
342nd.
Judge McGrath said there were no issues.
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Debbie, I'm assuming that where some of these were the, scare you there? Where some of the salary numbers go down, it's because they've had a change in personnel?
That's not really exactly it. There's kind of a long, we spent a lot of time looking at that because it bothered us too. There's kind of a long, drawn-out explanation for that we'll be happy to.
You think that's going to dissuade me from having to go ahead and do it?
That's a good answer.
No, tell me what it is.
Some of it is, just every fiscal year has a varying number of working days. And this fiscal year, there'll actually be 261. Is that it? And what we realized, especially when we saw these smaller little amounts like that,
$16.
yeah, is when we did the salary adjustments, it calculated it for 260 days and not 261 days. So there's that little variance that makes these small departments show up like a sore thumb. The other thing is court coordinators are on a career path, but when they change grades, they don't actually get a salary increase unless they're under the hiring minimum. But when the system automatically calculates structure, merit, and market, it's looking at them differently. So it's putting too much money out there in that 5-year increment when they actually change grades. So in essence, that's what it is. So we figured it out. We'll tighten that up, and we'll take a different look at it in the future.
So in Judge McGrath's court, where it goes down by $1,086, that has something to do with the...
86. Helen, you had a good one for that one? Because most of them didn't go down.
That's why I stopped on that one to ask the question. There's only been a few of them.
It could have been. It could have been. His coordinator could have.
Jeff Walker's went down by the same amount. And I'll bet he didn't change anybody in his court.
No.
Everybody else has had this weird, just $16 amount, $14.
Judge Berger's went down 15,000.
Well, they have had staff turnover.
Huh?
They have had staff turnover. We'll look at that one closer and come back to you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
348th. Judge Womack.
Approval?
She's okay.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
352nd.
Move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Motion passes unanimously.
We'll now go to the family courts. First one is 231st.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
233rd.
No issues.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
322nd.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is the one where you did say that there had been turnover in that.
Correct.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
324th. 324th.
Move approval.
Second?
Oh, no issues. It's hard to read.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
325th. Judith Wells.
Move for approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
360th District. Judge
Move
Learman.
approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council fees. Why did the council fees, I guess we were taking up $10,000 on all the courts.
Well,
No.
council fees, of course, keep in mind here that those council fees, the majority of those are going to be related to CPS cases, even though you see a very large budget for CPS cases in the juvenile court. If a family court has had any prior dealings with a family, then they're transferred here. So we see these continue to increase.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We're now going to go to county courts at law. Law number 1, court number 1.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. I'm assuming that that increase is the coordinator must have gone up in the path.
Possibly, yes, sir.
But if we've frozen all those, how could that happen?
Well,
Lured you right into that one, didn't I?
could be later. Gonna have to look at it more.
Could have happened last year.
Could have.
You might remember that when we came to you in April and then again this morning, we said there were some building costs that we had, about $10 million that were carryover costs from the year before. So you very well may see actions that occurred last year that carry over, increase their budgets this year.
And I guess depending upon, and I know we haven't done anything yet, but depending upon where we're at, if we freeze people in their career paths, their steps, or wherever, that would be for the year that'll begin October the 1st. So someone may actually get a step increase on September the 30th, not probably, but on September the 30th. They would get that, but then they wouldn't get it next September the 30th. So that's going to be, that's the way we would be addressing this, right?
If they get it on September 30th, then it will be included in the F10 budget, because it's something that occurred in '09, carries over to F10.
Right. So that's going to be one of those things where, and I guess another interesting point on that, when we do all of the other folks, the career paths and the folks that are like in the DAs, investigators, well, the DAs, investigators, and court coordinators are the ones that are...
No, it's the attorneys and
the attorneys.
Coordinators.
Is SAP going to be able to figure out that, okay, instead of having a 2-year, there should have been a 3-year?
Yes.
Good.
There's review dates built into the system, and those review dates, if there's a year...
That's one of those things where I see a trust me in that deal.
No. If there's a year out there where there are no raises, then we simply increase their review date. Okay. There's nothing automatic about it. There's still some manual intervention there.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
CCL 2,
Move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
CCL 3,
Move approval.
Second?
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
we're now going to go to the probate courts. Probate 1,
Judge King, coming on down.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to be seen. Members of the court, senior staff, elected officials, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you. I'm just here to express my gratitude to the Commissioners Court and to the administration and to the Budget Office for their assistance. As Tarrant County continues to grow, our dockets continue to grow, perhaps at a faster rate than before. As a result, our need for services for people under guardianship and our increasing need for services for people to be mentally committed continue to increase at an increasing rate. In fact, we've already been in discussion with the Budget Office that there may be some funds in excess of what we've even budgeted that will be necessary because of the increasing mental health commitments that we're facing. And so I just wanted to make myself available for any questions the court might have.
Move approval of the court. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We appreciate you and appreciate everything you do.
Thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Probate 2,
I had a discussion with Judge Furchill this morning. He does have mental health docket this morning. We again talked about the mental health issue and the number of cases, which has gone from an average about 30 to in excess of 60 sometimes. There has a potential impact of additional costs, approximately $60,000 that we have. You know, we keep a sum of money available for the courts, knowing that we can't predict the ad items perfectly, available for situations like that in the courts and judiciary non-departmental budget.
So you're adding about $130,000.
That's all guardianship services.
You know.
This is mental health. You know, they have 3 distinct areas that they deal with regularly: mental health, probate cases, and guardianships.
Move approval of.
I think we already have. Do we have a motion and a second? Okay. Excuse me.
Second.
We have a motion and a second now. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
we're now going to the criminal district courts, CDC 1.
And I think we can take all the felony courts at once through the 3, well, actually, there's a new one. I'm sorry, I don't know its number.
432.
432, that just doesn't flow. We can take all those at once. There's no issues with any of those budgets.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Magistrate court.
There's no issue with magistrate court, criminal court support, grand jury, criminal attorney appointments, criminal mental health court, or any of the misdemeanor courts, the county criminal courts 1 through 10.
So I'll move for the approval of all those budgets that Debbie just listed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so we'll go to JPs. JP number 1.
I did have a discussion last week with Judge Swearingen. To the best of my knowledge, there's not, okay, here, it's coming back. Judge Swearingen's been asked to teach several classes next year for the State Bar and potentially for the JP Association too. He did request additional days. Right now, we provide all the courts except for JP2 with 15 days of visiting judge time. JP2, we provide extra days because they are on a quality assurance committee for the Clerks Association.
Which JP are you talking about?
JP1.
Just Swearingen.
Swearingen.
And additional days are needed for his availability to teach.
Yes.
I would suggest that if that becomes a problem during the year, that we take a look at it at that time.
Okay.
I'll move approval of JP1's budget.
Second.
So you have not put any additional dollars in there right now. They're not exactly the same.
Well, and the reason for that is, once again, we had a change in how we have to handle the visiting judges. It's actually budgeted under two accounts for FY09. There's one toward the bottom that's called salary appointed officials, and then that one at the top, visiting judges. We had to change from paying those judges through accounts payable through payroll. So that's why we had to change account numbers, but they are the same, with the exception of JP2. No, there's no extra here. It's right at $8,400. Oh, is that right? Wrong. Right at $5,000. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, the very next one, 6,600.
But that's the one that we have allowed extra days for, because the committee that she serves on with the Clerks Association. And actually, her committee is quality assurance, so she actually has to attend several of the clerks' training sessions.
And all the travel and everything else associated with those, with that teaching is paid for by whomever entity?
To the best of my knowledge.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
JP2,
JP2 has no issues.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote.
JP3,
Motion passes unanimously.
Sorry, Your Honor.
A little ahead of himself, isn't he?
JP3,
Like it. Are you getting slow?
I'm getting slow, I guess.
JP3.
Move approval.
Second.
I got some discussion. At JP3, did he ask for some additional days for visiting judges?
Doesn't look like he asked for additional days.
Okay.
JP3.
I know what he had asked. He'd come visit with me about it. It would probably be additional days a year from now, because he's on a committee that deals with the legislature, and he'd be missing some days when the legislature's in session, so it would be next year. Okay.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
JP4,
Move
JP,
approval.
yeah.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
JP5,
Move approval.
No issues.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
JP6,
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. There also is differing variances in education down there. I'm not sure exactly what the difference would be, but,
We try to base that on the number of employees, and they have varying numbers of employees.
okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
JP7,
We did have a conversation with JP7. We promised them, but we'd go back and look at their postage again. But we have no recommendations right now.
So do we continue that one?
I'd approve it. We can come back with something different if we see it necessary.
Move for approval.
Second.
Now that you bring that up, why is his postage twice what?
If you're going to compare it, you need to compare it to JP2. They have similar caseloads.
And JP2 is 10,000, and he's
And
currently at 17?
Hence why we changed our recommendation on that budget. Something's going on there.
Do we need to send the DA's investigator to find out what it is?
Of course, these are outlying locations by stamps. Most of us have mail room, most of us downtown, all of us downtown use the mail room. Outlying locations by stamps. Many of the JPs have found a way to get their mail downtown. Precinct 4, who has someone available to make runs on a regular basis, brings JP4's mail. JP7's not found a way to bring theirs downtown. We recommend that they send their mail with their constables, since they are downtown once a day picking up papers. JP8, for instance, sends their mail with constable. Oh, well, I think they do. Anyway, we try to focus on bringing it downtown as much as possible to get away from actually buying stamps.
Is it cheaper?
No.
Yes, the mail, when you bring it downtown, it is cheaper because it goes out pre-sort. So we do get a discount.
There's enough from other areas that would use that zip code that would be pre-sort?
It doesn't matter. As long as it's going out from our central location, it goes. We have a company that picks up our mail that actually pre-sorts it.
So how much cheaper is it?
On a normal first-class letter, it's several cents.
So has this been explained to everybody?
We pretty much have this conversation annually.
Well, we have run into the issue, there is no runner from anybody specific at either 2 or 7.
Right.
And so it sort of catch can.
And, you know, and with some of them, it's a matter of the timing of when the constable's coming downtown to pick up papers.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
JP8.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
District Attorney.
Good morning.
Another newbie.
Excuse me?
Another newbie.
Absolutely. I've been in office about 91 days, and I'm trying to absorb all of this massive amounts of information with which I've been inundated. I'm working on this. But first of all, I would like to briefly thank very much the administration and Debbie and GK for working with us to try to work out the issue with regard to the narcotics, which is sort of always an annual issue. And we've worked on a number there where we're going to actually give up 3 positions out there and give up 1 position in town to try to do our part to try to, you know, tighten the belt, as all of us know needs to be done. So we've done that, and we're satisfied that we can get by with the narcotics situation the way it's been done with regard to we've got some attrition there taking place that we're trying to utilize and that sort of thing. So we can live with that as we're currently situated. I do have 2 issues that are left unresolved, but one of them I'd like to pull down for the time being, and that's involving our request for a video forensic analyst. We're working on getting some additional information on that. We didn't have it in time, so perhaps we'll come back and address that somewhere down the road. It's not going to be a major impact, but for the time being and for today, it was one of those positions that was not recommended, and so we'll leave that for another day if it's all right with the court. I do have one remaining issue, and I do understand that, you know, there's no new positions other than staffing the new court, but one of the problems that has arisen, which requires court staffing, is the acquisition of an additional crimes against children lawyer. We currently have 4 lawyers and 1 chief covering 9 courts, with the 10th court where it just stretched really thin. We have, each of our lawyers covers 2 different courts. The chief, in addition to her administrative duties, covers 1 court, so that's 9. But we have not had a new crimes against children lawyer since 1995, in which time the population of the county has gone up some 400,000. And the sad part is there are more and more cases involving abuse, both physical and sexual, to our little people in the community, and they're going up all the time. They're being reported. But what I'd like to do, if it's all right with the court, is I'd like to introduce to you Alana Minton, who is our chief of our crimes against children, and let her give you a brief, short summary of what we submit that our needs are as part of staffing the new court, if that's all right. Okay?
Sure.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As Mr. Shannon stated, the last prosecutor was added to crimes against children 14 years ago. In 1995, we had 4 prosecutors and 1 chief. However, we've actually lost a little bit since that time, because from 1995 until 2005, we had a part-time prosecutor that didn't try cases, but she handled our grand jury. that is handled throughout the unit. And in 1995, we lost that part-time position. It was absorbed into something else. So when we lost that, we actually reabsorbed the grand jury back into the 5 lawyers, myself, and then the other 4 lawyers. As Mr. Shannon stated, based on population, probably reporting, not necessarily that there's more child abuse as much as there is more awareness, more public awareness, more reporting, our numbers have consistently gone up. And in 2000, we did not ask for an additional prosecutor with the creation of the 396th. We just stretched ourselves a little thinner and made do. It's our position, however, that with the creation of the 432nd, we can't stretch anymore. I currently cover 1 court in addition to my administrative duties and my meetings and county obligations that I have that the position entail. My other prosecutors each carry 2 courts. With the creation of a 10th court, that would either require the chief to take on a 2nd court or the other prosecutors to take on more than 2 courts. It's physically not possible. We handle the most serious of the child abuse, the sexual abuse of children 8 and under, the serious bodily injury cases, and the child fatalities. Any high-profile cases, incredibly complex cases involving more than 3 victims. And it's our position that if we stretch ourselves any farther with covering 1 more court, we're not going to be able to do that to the level of efficiency that we should be able to and the amount of time we should devote to these cases.
So you're asking for an additional prosecutor in conjunction with staffing the new court?
Correct.
As a part of that overall staffing plan?
We believe we cannot staff the new court with the current makeup of the Crimes Against Children unit. Without an additional prosecutor, we don't think we can staff it effectively.
Judge, could we hold up on a vote on the DAs until we can do some research on this and the other item that he brought up?
I think that'd be fine. Okay. So we'll put y'all on the to-be-considered file, or to-be-continued.
Thank you.
To decide if we're going to keep a DA's office or not.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
District Clerk.
District Clerk accepts the recommendations of the Budget Office, thanks to the Court and the Budget Office, making it all fit.
Move approval.
Second. Motion was second.
Broke his word with us, though. You realize that? He wasn't going to say anything.
Well, I thought I was asked to say something.
That's impossible. He split the baby. He didn't come to the mic. That's impossible.
It's a long one.
Complex compound sentence.
Thank you, Tom. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. County Clerk.
Move approval.
Second.
Oh, surely you don't want to say something.
No, in fact, I want to thank you.
Huh?
I want to thank you. I do accept the recommendation from the Budget Director. I also want to tell you a special thanks because attending a conference last month with the clerks, my colleagues around the nation, I heard horror stories of workforce reduction. And so it makes me appreciate this court all the more and working in Tarrant County, and we're just staying status quo and benefits intact. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Domestic Relations.
Oh, they called and they had no issues.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Jury Services.
Huh? Jury Services has no issues.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Special Judges.
There are no issues.
Move for approval.
And that's where you're talking about that visiting judge, extra $6,000?
Say that one more time.
Well, we're talking about, are those special judges? Is that what the 60?
No, this is really just more of the biggest number in here represents substitute court reporters. This is the $6,000, that is, no, this is not what, no. That's the next budget.
So the substitute court reporters are in the $350,000 number?
Correct. significant.
Do we have a motion and a second? We only have a motion.
Second.
Did one of them make the original motion? I don't remember.
I didn't make the motion.
Okay. But we do have a second and a motion now. Okay. Motion passes unanimously.
Courts and judiciary.
This is the one. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Of course, we don't budget for capital murder fees in the individual felony courts, with the exception of $25,000. So majority of the council fees here are for the capital murders, then the difference is what we anticipate will be allocated during the year. You can see that these numbers right here started out essentially the same as the recommended budget for 10. So needless to say, they do get allocated during the year. But there's no issues with this budget, from our perspective. Sir?
If you'll quit talking, somebody might make a motion.
Doesn't sound
So
that way.
moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, quick question to the court. We're at 20 minutes till 12. Do you want to continue, or would you like to break for lunch? We're at a natural break here, I believe. Whatever the court's desires are.
Let's break.
Let's break. Start back around 1 o'clock.
I would like to make a comment.
Go right ahead.
Just to point out something. I know that we've had conversations this morning about salary increases and issues like that. I do want to remind the court that one of the things that we have included in this budget is almost a $3.9 million, $3.9 million increase in health insurance coverage. And what that represents is that this budget includes any increases in health costs to the employees would be incurred by the county and not the employee. Just to keep that, and it's about a $3.7, $3.8 million hit on our part.
Okay, we will,
Which translates into more than a 1% raise.
Yes, it does.
For most employees.
For most
not all.
employees.
okay.
At least
With that, we will be in recess until about 1 o'clock.
No, I mean cuts.
That's
Yeah,
right.
just-
We have had those conversations. I don't remember.
I tell you what, we'll match percentages. Okay, let's go ahead and, well, Commissioner Fickus,
Thank you. He's pretty busy.
he's grazing back there at the table of calories.
Okay, and we can go to county judge.
I would say that I have not yet filled and do not plan to fill this year that 7th position that I have in my budget, so that's not going to be filled this year, so that even though that's still in the budget, it'll be less whatever that amount would have been. So with that, I'll move approval.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
County administrator.
We heard from the administrator, and there are no issues.
Move for approval.
And he praised the budget office as he does every moment of every waking hour.
Here's a quick study. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Non-departmental.
Non-departmental didn't call. Of course, this is where you'll see the special election, and also under county projects here, we've included Trinity River Vision. But there are no other issues to be brought to your attention at this time.
Move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And we also have road and bridge non-department, which,
Road and Bridge, non-departmental, same thing.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
debt service.
Again, debt service and interest payments for next fiscal year, there are no issues.
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
County auditor.
No problem.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Budget risk management, we recommend approval.
Second?
You don't have any problems with yourself?
Well, daily, just like you do, daily, but there are no issues here.
Inasmuch as Mr. Manius can't make a motion.
Did I make a motion? I said, I recommend. Silly me.
I try to keep him in his place, but
Move approval.
Well, GK, since GK can't, let's go ahead and use Roy there instead of GK.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do not put my name down it.
Motion passes unanimously by 6 votes.
There's a pecking order. There's a pecking order, and I know where I'm at on that. Tax assessor.
No problems, we'll push for 100% collections as long as you promise me I won't end up tarred and feathered like this one. I don't know whether you agree or not.
Beware tax collector.
Move approval.
We can work on it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Elections.
we did talk to the elections office, and they have no issues.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This takes the special election and puts it over we have that in non-departmental,
It's in
not over here.
non-departmental, that's correct.
So the increases that we see in this are just reflective of a normal primary and,
Constitutional election, yes.
yeah.
Which we were hoping there wouldn't be one, but there is.
It's also the regular primary election, too.
Oh, well, the primary is paid for it's set for early voting by the parties. We have constitutional and we have early voting.
Okay. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
IT?
We accept the recommended budget.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
HR?
I lost them.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Purchasing?
Yes, sir.
Our gift line item was cut, but we were able to come up with 6 matching pins from Judge McGrath's court to say thank you for helping us do a serious job with smile on your face.
What?
Serious job with
Serious job with what?
With a smile.
A smiley face. All right.
I don't know why I thought it said.
With a smile on her face.
Thank you.
Judge Bob McGrath.
I know Bob
just
already
kissed
had
it.
this.
We're fine with everything. We do have a purchasing board scheduled for next Tuesday. Budget is on the discussion. Some good news, we had a $452,000 auction Saturday.
Wow.
We did very well with the venue. And I want to take just a minute and thank our staff for helping with the budget process also. We spend a lot of time, like everybody else, to come up with the numbers for the copy machines, the vehicles, the equipment, the bond paper. A lot of things we help in coordination with the process. And contrary to a statement that was made earlier today, since April, Mr. Manius has approved every capital requisition personally that we purchased in Tarrant County. So the word's been out for quite some time that we were taking a look at everything, and it's worked very well. And we want to thank the court for your support. Thank Debbie, and thank you for what you do.
We had a good sale Saturday, I'll say that. PC and I attended.
Good. What I would suggest that we have is a motion and a second to recommend this budget to the purchasing board for their...
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Now, wait a minute. I thought the purchasing board had recommended this one to us.
What it was that they looked at it, y'all tentatively approved it, you asked that they take it to the Commissioners Court. It needs to come back now, go back to the purchasing board for final approval for inclusion into the budget.
Goodness gracious.
So don't smile yet, Jack. I'm on the purchasing board, too.
Do we need to get the pins back?
Now, you may have to find another one.
Do we vote on that?
Are you going to stop announcing on that? Do you want me to call this next one?
I think we don't have a vote on that yet. We have a motion and a second.
Y'all missed it. I did hit the light and say your motion passed unanimously, but I'll hit it again just for y'all's sake.
We're going to try.
Facility. Catch it that time?
No. Facilities.
We agree with the budget as presented.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And Mr. Phillips, that includes all the buildings, too?
Yes.
Facilities management and the buildings. Okay, thank you.
We're going to Road and Bridge Fund, Precinct 1.
Precinct 1 is doing fine in the southwest corner of our county. Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 2.
We are fine. I move for approval.
Second.
And can we change the name because we're no longer the Mebus Southeast of Courthouse?
There actually is 2 building budgets out there. One of them's Mebus and one of them's Courthouse at Arlington. These old buildings still exist.
Well, where is that one then?
I'll look up the number and give it to you in a second.
There it is. Okay, so the Mebus building still has its own separate budget.
Correct, because there's still, the CSCD people are still out there.
And that isn't of it.
Right.
Okay.
Do we have a motion? Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 3.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 4.
Precinct 4, I want to ask Debbie, did you get those signs in here? I don't know if the rest of y'all are aware or checked yours on that, but on the signs we're getting from the sign shop, we're going to now have to pay commercial prices. They're not going to make them, and so we needed $3,750 added to ours.
We received information from the other three on theirs.
Okay, and then the other two questions that I had was on fuel and electricity. Mine are way overstated, and they need to be adjusted. But I talked to Debbie during the hearings today, and not only ours, but everybody, we all need to be uniform throughout the county on this power and fuel.
In the other three precincts, we had adjustments submitted to us that are in the recommended budgets for their fuel.
Move approval.
Second.
So we've already taken care of that, correct, Debbie?
Right, we need to go back and adjust precinct 4.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of money taken off because of that.
Well, it'll be off of yours then. 'Cause everybody
Rest of
else
them-
has already done that.
You're talking about the
Maybe,
budgeted part.
I
You're talking
haven't
about
checked yours.
Okay, you're talking about the budgeted part. Okay?
So we need to add $3,750 to signs.
And then take off, what, about 60,000
You want what?
on your, on electricity?
I think that's probably in the neighborhood on, I'm having trouble focusing, that's up here.
Well, 640 was taken out of mine off of electricity, so.
What happened on that? Was that just,
They used last year's rates or something.
I don't know. What did we get?
And then I said 32,000.
Yeah. Or
okay.
the budget need to be 32.
The budget needs to be 32.
I'm trying to find it. I can't even find it. on my-
In yours, it's in the garage, and it was at 94, and you're saying it needs to be 32, so that would be 62.
Right. The fuel,
Was it fuel electricity?
it was both. Did your precinct give you a recommendation? You wanted us to look to see what we've got on
I
ours?
want you to apply whatever you're using throughout.
Okay.
Everybody-
505 to 365?
505.
Yeah, Roy's is about 345, so if you just moved it to that, that'd be about,
We got more miles of county roads than
Well, apparently we do more driving because we use more fuel.
Who's got more money?
don't ask that question, just leave it alone. Don't even get there. Don't even see what you caused. Didn't your mom ever tell you if you didn't have something good to say, just don't say anything?
No, he doesn't understand. Here it is.
And he wants to get more money?
Roy has 176.41 miles. I have 161.86.
But you have lakes.
The winner and still champion.
Don't forget we have 20 miles not online yet with GIC.
Y'all always go dig up some more miles.
20 not online, and ours are all improved roads. Oh, wait a minute. Precinct 3 has 59.08. Precinct 2 has 20.70.
Never said I had any more.
Or less.
Moving right along,
So where are we?
right of way,
Are those your numbers or some official numbers?
Did we take a vote on precinct 4's budget?
How do I know that?
Right there it is from Debbie K. Snyder.
Via transportation.
We did. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously,
And there were
whatever the motion was.
There were three adjustments, $155,000 on fuel, $37.50 addition in road signs, and minus $62,000 in electricity. Right away.
Transportation.
Did we just pass right by right away, or did you just decide you didn't want to do that one?
For right-of-way, we're requesting that court approve the budget as submitted for right-of-way.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Did we get that situation out there? Like
Joe's out there handling as we speak. If you'd like, I'll come talk to you. I'm sorry. Joe's
Just kind of.
back this way, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Joe is out handling it as we speak, meeting with both the property owners, and then Jeannie and her staff is looking at the ownership of that right-of-way. There's some question of whether the county still owns it, because there's no road built there, so we're checking into that. But Joe is meeting with them on the ground to come to an immediate solution, and then we'll look long-term. I can talk to you in more detail in your office if you'd like.
Well, there wasn't any question about ownership when you and I were out there.
No, sir, I did not realize that there was a question about that, but they're looking into it. It shows up on some old maps, but we haven't yet located the documents that says that's the county's right-of-way. So it's just a question, and Jeannie's talking to the DA's office as well on that.
So during next year's budget, I know we've already passed this, but we're seeing a state right-of-way go down by $4.8 million. That's just, we don't expect to have to be buying right-of-way on behalf of the state.
Well,
No, it's
a combination of the state and county right-of-way. It has $6 million from interest earnings in the transportation bond program.
So that's how it's getting.
We're paying for it outside of 261.
Okay.
$6 million
Okay.
And change.
Transportation.
and change. We ask for your approval for that budget as well.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Sign shop.
Recommend approval as well.
Move for approval of the sign shop.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Central garage.
Move approval.
We're doing central garage.
Trying to keep it lively.
We got a bunch of motions in a couple of seconds. Y'all figure it out. Any other discussion? Motion passes unanimously.
Look,
Thank you.
an empty page.
Say we're through. So at this point in time, we have some discussions that we're going to continue to do on the DA's office.
And human services for the burial issue.
Yes.
And
I think that was it. Then the next thing that we'll have is we'll be waiting for the upcoming September 1st tax values.
Yes.
And then we'll see where we go from there on that standpoint.
And we may get some, we expect we may get some additional clarification on the 95% roll in a couple of weeks, maybe prior to that September roll.
Any other
I want my screen back.
thoughts or comments at this point in time? Again, as Mr. Manion said earlier, I want to echo the appreciation, I think, of the entire court for the elected officials and the department heads and the job that everybody did to I think, work through a very difficult tax year. I don't, as Commissioner Van Ravensway mentioned earlier, I'm not sure this will be the last one that we have, but this was a start, and I appreciate everybody's hard work in looking at that. And we'll kind of see how we continue to go as we approach the 15th. If there are no other comments or questions at this time, we stand adjourned.
That was easy. Joe must have taken control. Don't you hate it when we give him that power?
Wonderful.
You know, it's